Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Melissa Martin. I am with ATS-LAB Midwest. We are going to be hosting your webinar today. It's really great to be back together again. It's been a while since we've all come together on a webinar, and we just love spending time together here on Wednesday afternoons. So first of all, thank you for carving out an hour of your week to spend with us, because we have just an incredible lineup of speakers today. I mean, you could not have asked for a better group of educators, of industrial employers, of workforce and economic development leaders to come together in this roundtable and discuss how Michigan is really leading this charge on Industry 4.0 and creating aligned pathways for our students. And that's all I have. So I'm going to pass things over to Matt Kirchner, who is going to get us started on this topic of how educators across Michigan are aligning on Industry 4.0. Matt?
All right. Well, thank you, Melissa, and welcome, everybody. I share that sentiment. The amazing number of registrations we've had for this webinar is a testament, first and foremost, to the caliber and the quality of our guests. And we look forward to getting to all of their comments shortly. This is going to be a really great discussion. It's going to be a fast ride, so hang on. We're going to get started. If the concept of Industry 4.0 is new to you, this is actually a little bit outside of the scope of the discussion today. We're assuming many of you are already familiar, or most of you are already familiar, but suffice it to say that in the same way that the first three industrial revolutions in the 1700s, 1800s, and 1900s totally revolutionized manufacturing, technologies like cyber physical systems, artificial intelligence, machine learning, digital twins are doing exactly the same thing in the world of industry today. And the topic today is to chat about how Michigan is leading on Industry 4.0. Now, I have the pleasure every single week of hosting the National Tech Ed podcast, where we talk to people that are doing amazing things in technical education. It is incredible how often these discussions come back to the state of Michigan. Not long ago, we had Susan Corbin, the director of the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, on our podcast, talking all about 60 by 30. And Ryan Hunt from Michigan Works is going to be on with us a little later to talk about this initiative, but a huge focus on Industry 4.0 when it comes to the work that Director Corbin is doing. Awesome things going on in the UP at Gogebic Community College, where my friend Glenn Ackerman-Bear has put together a program for students of many ages to learn Industry 4.0 technology. Not too far away from Glenn is Dickinson Iron School District, where middle school students, that's right, middle school students are learning about advanced manufacturing and Industry 4.0. Same thing going on at the Genesee Career Institute, where students that are of high school age and beyond are learning about these technologies and these competencies: smart sensors, smart devices, data analytics, all the things that go along with Industry 4.0. In Grand Rapids, Michigan, Northview High School implemented this program at the beginning of this school year. If you haven't been to the LIFT Institute in Detroit, where students are learning all about advanced manufacturing, really cool innovations in materials. And these are students from some of the communities that are most at risk that can best benefit from this type of learning, creating amazing pathways in Industry 4.0 as a result of the work that's happening there in downtown Detroit. Now, last year I had Bill Pink, who's the president of Grand Rapids Community College, on my podcast, talking about how important it is for our educators to remain relevant in this world of Industry 4.0. Tim Hood is the president of Mid-Michigan College. He and I had a similar conversation. Mid-Michigan hosted a national conference in November last year, a best practices conference in Industry 4.0, with attendees from all over the United States attending virtually in a conference that was co-hosted by Mid-Michigan. I had Damon Provost, who's the managing director of the Robotics Institute at the University of Michigan, talking about all the work that he's doing in Industry 4.0 and bringing these technologies to multiple groups of people. We talked about the democratization of STEM learning and STEM education. If you don't know Dave Campbell at Kalamazoo RISA, awesome guy. He and I used to sail on the same lake together in Wisconsin. He is now the superintendent of that RISA that has $100 million that it is investing in CTE, including a huge focus in the world of Industry 4.0 technology. This was an awesome project that was done at the Oakland Community Schools last year, where we had a program where students are learning about artificial intelligence, machine learning in middle school. and also learning about autonomous vehicles and all the technology that goes along with that, taking that information, rolling it up to the cloud, and using that in an advanced data analytics program. Again, students at the middle school level. This is really important. We all know that the state of Michigan is the center of automotive technology. It has led on automotive technology for decades and decades and over a century. And the MyRev initiative around electrification and autonomous vehicles is a great example of the convergence of Industry 4.0 technology with the world of transportation. Amazing things going on in Southeast Michigan with the Workforce Intelligence Network and their investment in Infinity 0.0. This whole idea that in the fourth industrial revolution, it will go on forever. We are in a never-ending period of time of industrial evolution and revolution, and there won't be an Industry 5.0. We are in a world of continuous evolution and innovation in the world of Industry 4.0. Now, I had Blake Moret, who's the chairman and CEO on my podcast last year, and he's the chairman and CEO, by the way, of Rockwell Automation, an unbelievably active player in this world of advanced automation and Industry 4.0. We'll be hearing a little bit later in our discussion today from Joe Zaccaria of Rockwell Automation, a great friend of mine. But Rockwell is leading not just in the Midwest, but around the globe in this world of smart technology. They made a huge investment last year in a company called Plex Systems, $2.2 billion acquisition of that company, cloud software related to advanced manufacturing and Industry 4.0. Where is Plex located? You guessed it, right in the state of Michigan. Troy, Michigan, as a matter of fact. Right up the road from Troy, Michigan is Rochester Hills, where my great friend, Mike Chico, Mike and I have traveled the world together studying Industry 4.0. President and CEO of Fanuc America. If you don't know it, Michigan, you are home to the largest robotics company in the world, and their North American headquarters is right there in the state of Michigan, right in Detroit. Mike is a great, great partner of mine, and we talked all about how robotics, automation, and Industry 4.0 are absolutely transforming manufacturing. Now, I could go on. I spend a ton of time in and around Michigan. There are so many examples of great things that are happening in the state of Michigan, but we have to get on with our webinar. Suffice it to say this, though, as we look at all of these great opportunities and all of these great initiatives, there's one concern that I have. And that concern is, are we doing a good enough job of aligning all of these efforts? And are we creating pathways? And are we creating opportunities for our students and learners of all ages to learn the right competencies in a way that doesn't require us to duplicate effort? That is what this discussion today is all about. We are talking about translating the world of education and the language of education to industry. Not too long ago, a couple of years ago, I was giving a presentation to a group of educators, and I was talking all about how PLCs are going to totally transform the world of industry and have transformed the world of industry, and how they are the computers of manufacturing. And without PLCs, we couldn't manufacture anything. And I was 10 minutes into my discussion before I realized that while I was talking about programmable logic controllers, my audience thought I was talking about professional learning communities. The truth of the matter is, industry and education speak different languages, and we need to find ways to translate from one language to the next. Now, a few short years ago, I was in London and I visited the British Museum. If you've never been to the British Museum, it is awesome. I can't even do justice to how many cool things I saw while I was at the British Museum. But one of the coolest, I have to admit, this is a picture we took of the Rosetta Stone. What is the Rosetta Stone? Well, it was discovered in the year 1799, and it is a decree that was issued in Memphis, not Tennessee, Memphis, Egypt, in the year 196 BC. And what you can see on the Rosetta Stone is that it included that edict in 3 different forms: Egyptian hieroglyphics, Egyptian Demotic, and ancient Greek. Well, here's the thing. Researchers could read ancient Greek, but at the time that was discovered, they could not read Egyptian hieroglyphics. Our ability to read that ended somewhere around the year 400 AD. But using the Rosetta Stone, those researchers were able to read Egyptian hieroglyphics and were able to translate then into Egyptian hieroglyphics. In the same idea, we need a way to translate from education to industry so that we can take the language of industry and help educators speak it, and vice versa. Is there a way to do that? Indeed, there is, and we're going to talk all about it today. It is the Smart Automation Certification Alliance, an organization that has created certifications and competencies around Industry 4.0 technology. And they did that by asking this question. They went to industrial employers and they said, when you hire, when you train, when you promote Industry 4.0 talent, What is it that you're looking for? And you can see the logos of some of the most recognizable companies in the Midwest and around the United States that were instrumental in telling SBAA what competencies they were hiring for. And the list is a lot bigger than what you see on your screen right now. These are just some of the more recognizable Midwestern companies that you might be familiar with. And what they said was, when we translate from industry to education, here are the competencies we're looking for. Every single one of the line items on your screen is a different micro-credential that we can align in so many different ways, as we'll talk about today, to the world of education. We can translate from high school to college. So if I have a high school student that is studying at a tech center, at a career center, or in high school studying certain courses, we have schools all over the state of Michigan that are teaching those first 4 credentials in the classroom and then helping their students articulate those courses and those credits into technical and community colleges and elsewhere. We're going to talk about that today. We need to be able to translate coursework to certifications. So if I have a course that's already in existence in my community college, for example, I can look at these credentials, I can look at these competencies and crosswalk competencies from my course outcomes into the SBAA credentials. That is another way that SBAA translates. And we need to have an ability to translate to other programs. So as we look at these competencies, there are crosswalks to other programs like the Manufacturing Skills Standards Council, if you're familiar with MSSC, like Ignite, like FAME, for that matter, like FANUC. FANUC has been a huge supporter of the work that SBAA has done, and there's tremendous numbers of crosswalks and commonality between the SBAA credentials and the competencies that students are learning in their FANUC and FANUC-related programs. Finally, we need a way to translate to the workforce. If you are in BNI, if you're in workforce development at a community college, for example, if you're a private employer that wants to upskill your employees around these technologies, these micro-credentials are the absolute perfect way to do it. And in fact, SBAA has even crosswalked these micro-credentials into groups of micro-credentials that align to certain career pathways and occupations when students get to the workforce. So when we talk about the ability to translate industry to education, high school to college, coursework to certifications, translate to other certifications, and translate to the workplace, SBAA is a perfect platform for that. That is what we're going to learn about today. It is brand agnostic and affordable. The certifications should be pathways for students to amazing careers, not pathways for somebody to make a big pile of money. And we'll learn about that. They're brand agnostic. It doesn't matter how you got the competency. What's important is that you have it, and incredibly affordable. $500 to $2,500 a year for most types of organizations. And you can issue as many certifications to your learners, students, and employees as you want to. So with that, wow, what a ride we're on. We're right on time, Mr. Joe Zaccaria. Joe and I have partnered on so many cool things over the course of the last couple of years. Joe is the manager of the global academic group at Rockwell Automation. We've already talked about Rockwell. Joe, welcome to the webinar today. It's great to see you.
Thank you, Matt. Good to see you.
Yeah, so let's dive right in. I've got a few questions for you, Joe. And the first one is, look, Rockwell is a total world leader in this area of advanced manufacturing and automation. What technological and skills-based changes do you see taking place in industry right now that our students need to be prepared for?
Well, Matt, as technology moves forward at an ever-increasing pace, which we've all seen, capability to use and implement the technologies that are coming forward is clearly important to the future of manufacturing. The use of these technologies such as robots, robotic systems, automation systems, visualization systems, knowledge transfer, analytical systems, digital twins, and so on, it continues to expand at a pace that requires workforce development ecosystems to significantly increase capacity. Your question touches on significantly more impactful topic, though, which is what roles are we aligning students to? System developers, operations and analytical tool applications, maintenance and reliability, supply chain. All of these role categories will require some understanding of technology, but more importantly, the outcome-based use cases. So those are the kind of things that we're going to be addressing. Other learning must be done in 2 other primary areas. One being networking, particularly that of OT networks and their integration with IT systems. This is enabling infrastructure which has a foundation in significant cybersecurity awareness component. In concert with network infrastructure foundation, data structure orchestration and transportation methods must also be included. without these two elements, Matt, the talent and the talent development support, then the Industry 4.0 vision won't achieve its desired outcomes. So there's far more to it than just the cool technologies and the fancy, the augmented reality and the cool glasses and the things that make people excited about it. There is some depth and there's some foundations that have to be there that need to be supported. Last but to add to the question, the significant importance is asset management or maintenance of all these systems. Somebody has to do that. As advanced manufacturing technologies and techniques evolve, maintenance operations of manufacturers have to upskill to be able to support these systems and embed these embedded technologies. So generally speaking, there's a lot to do. This opens up, if you just start to imagine just the topics that I brought up, there's a huge number of pathways for a lot of different people and a lot of different learners that we can go down. And these are the things that we've been working on, and Matt and I have been working on, and we work on with our academic partners.
You know, you really touched on some interesting things, Joe. When we think about this IT and OT convergence, we think about some of the amazing career pathways: systems developer, maintenance reliability, supply chain. Industry 4.0 really touches on every single one of these aspects. And I know that's one of the many reasons that Rockwell Automation has been just a huge supporter of SBAA. And I have to thank you, first of all, as a board member of SBAA, who doesn't get paid, by the way, and absolutely makes no money on this other than the satisfaction of knowing that we're moving the needle in this whole world of advanced manufacturing, to thank you and to thank Rockwell Automation for that incredible support. But I'm curious, how and why has Rockwell been so supportive of the Smart Automation Certification Alliance?
So just to start with, Rockwell Automation is a Platinum SBAA member. We've been involved, well, frankly, and from my personal perspective, I've been involved directly because of your involvement, for lack of a better way of describing it.
I'll take it.
So you exposed us to it, and we just thought it was a terrific direction to go. Rockwell Automation's chosen to support SBAA for a number of reasons, not the least of which is SBAA's ability to support a wide range of institution, workforce development initiatives, and manufacturers' upskilling certification needs. The SBAA certifications are industry-driven. This is absolutely key. You said they were, but you made a mention that they were agnostic. But yeah, essentially, they are outcome-based. They are about having people be capable to perform a certain function and to complete certain tasks within the framework of these advanced automation systems. Rockwell Automation, as well as many other users and builders, are participating in creating the framework and the details around these certifications. The certifications indicate the ability of those who possess them to have the necessary skills aligned with the needs of the industry as indicated by the industry participants. That's a really powerful thing. This is a true partnership between industry, and you mentioned it, you called it the Rosetta Stone, but it's essentially, you're correct, it's what it is. It bridges the industry and the learning institutions so that it becomes a common language, or there becomes a common thread between the two. And they have a great accessibility model, which you also mentioned. So, some of the stuff I'm mentioning, you're just repeating what you said, but
perfect.
If we're to create a large enough workforce, we could adequately support the jobs of the future as well as fill the current talent gaps, we need to scale at a significant pace. And we're just in the beginnings of getting that done. And that requires cooperation between government agencies, workforce development agencies, academic institutions, industry. All of us together have to make this happen. This isn't going to happen just because one group or one person decides this is a good idea. So we're all collaborating together, and as a result, we're trying to figure out how to talk to each other. SBAA, being a nonprofit, has set up a highly attractive pricing model, which you threw up on the screen already. So you're hitting all the points I was already going down.
Yeah, well, our messaging is aligned. That's a good thing, right?
Yeah, that's pretty good, right? So, the content certifications are easily attainable for nearly all institutions. So they've been a great partner, and they continue to be a terrific partner, which we as a company value greatly. Rockwell thrives because of its relationship with its partners. And we in turn help to have our customers thrive because of our partnership with them. So this is the ecosystem we build, and it just follows our natural path to partner with institutions to create the talent create the talent that's needed by industry, our industry partners, and our friends in both our customers and our academic institution partners.
And I think on the topic of those academic institution partnerships, and it's amazing how often you use the word partnerships. It truly is what it's about. You speak the education lingo well, so our members or our attendees today who work in education know that you're no stranger to the world of education as well. In the 30 seconds to a minute we have left here, Joe, before we move on to our next guest, just tell our audience from your perspective, why should schools be delivering Industry 4.0 training and certifications to their students?
All right. That's an excellent question. I'll have to answer it this way. If our workforce is going to expand its capabilities in the areas of Industry 4.0, the ecosystem, which primarily is charged with bringing these capabilities forward, are the educational institutions. This also goes for reaching underserved communities and bringing STEM learning and capabilities to those who typically would not be exposed to those career opportunities. The SBAA certifications are industry accepted certifications. So imagine if besides a high school diploma, most or all of these students exit that level of learning with a package of value certification set. So think of this group of certifications that Matt showed on the screen, where almost all the students have at least 5 or 6 of those certifications, which reflects their capability to bring value to industry. It gives them that opportunity not to go straight into a good paying job straight out of high school, but not just a job, more of a career path now. So we're giving them a pathway. If they choose never to go beyond high school, they have a pathway into a career that's going to carry them throughout the rest of their life. It really, it's going to encourage diversity, diverse talent. It's going to encourage outreach into these underserved communities, and that's frankly where most of this workforce is going to come from. And from our perspective, it just doesn't get any better than that.
Doesn't get any better indeed, Joe. And I think you make some just amazing points as we head out of our discussion on industrial support. And I can tell you, when you talk about industrial support, there isn't any better partner than Rockwell Automation. And as you're hearing from Joe Zaccaria today, just incredibly supportive of the work that's taking place in the world of academia. So Joe, thank you so much for being along with us. We're now going to turn our sights a little bit to the topic of education. And we are going to talk with 4 educators who are using the SBAA credentials in 4 different ways to really leverage the work that is taking place in their institutions. And our first guest on the education side is my friend, Debbie Dawson-Gunther. Debbie, great to see you. You're a great friend and a great supporter of SBAA. Thanks for coming on with us.
My pleasure, Matt. It's good to be here.
Absolutely. So let's start with this question. You're a college who already had really well-established advanced manufacturing programs in place. I've visited your campus. It's amazing the work that you're doing there. So you had this challenge of modifying programs to some degree and maybe morphing the SBAA certifications back into the work that you're doing in really creative ways. How have these efforts enabled you to offer credits to regional high school students?
So what we did originally, and you see the list that we have up here, Matt, we went back through, we had a grant that we were able to spend some time. We had the programs in place, but we knew we had to build those up. And for all of the reasons that you had talked about, the accessibility, the industry support, Joe, you mentioned all those as well, that we chose to go with SBAA. We were a pilot member for the last 3 years, and we were able to, probably about the first two-thirds of this list, we were able to align with that first effort that we had. So we put in place our curriculum, and then as a pilot member, I had access so our students could come in and take those tests, and I could see what they were doing. So we could tweak what they were learning. If I saw part of a standard that all my students were missing, then it was time to improve me. So I would add more material for them until they got to the point where we're getting some pretty good success rates out of our students taking these. So once we have gotten that far, we said, now we had to look a little bit farther. So we've added more classes. Most recently, we looked at hydraulics and pneumatics, because you can't have an automation system unless you understand those. So this fall, we will actually be putting new programs in place to cover a few more of those courses. So we've got some nice stories to tell with that and have our outcomes in place. From a high school standpoint, we don't have any high school students coming to us yet with an industry certification. I'm going to be dancing in the street when that happens. I am so excited to watch that happen. I think it's going to be a great day when we have that. We do have I can share a story with one of my existing students, and it's not a high school student, but actually one of our college students came to me with the SACA credential. Yay. And he's like, okay, well, I have this, but I have to take your class. I'm like, well, yeah, you do. I said, however, you have already, this material. It was the silver side. So they had the knowledge piece. They didn't have the gold standard. So they still had to demonstrate their hands-on piece. That's a requirement for my class. So we sat down, we've got an open lab environment, and we've been able to get him through. I accepted all his work from having his credential. We did the hands-on portion, and he was done with class in about 3 weeks. So he was able to take his time and then focus it on what the rest of his coursework. So it was a really nice thing to do. So exciting place, exciting time to be in Michigan, and an exciting time to be working with industry, with the workforce, to make sure that we're supporting them and our students.
You know, it's an exciting time indeed. And again, having been to your campus at Montcalm, amazing work that's happening there. I love the story about that student that came with the credential and was able to establish that they had certain competencies, and that you could fill in some of those that needed to be filled in order to be able to continue through the coursework and complete it that quickly. I think it's a great example of how we can use these credentials, really articulating at every level of education. And we do have a number of programs around the Midwest where students are earning these credentials, earning these certifications in high school, and bringing those to their community college, bringing those to their technical college, and coming with credits. Sometimes as many as a dozen or more credits when they start there, taking a 2-year associate degree and maybe shrinking it into a 1.5 years or even less, getting them into the workforce even more quickly. So great examples, Debbie, of the awesome stuff that's happening there at Montcalm. I'm going to turn my attention now to another part of the state. We'll move southeast across Michigan, talk a little bit to our friends at Macomb Community College. Now, I've gotten to know Patrick Rouse over the course of the last several years, just a really great innovator, a deep thinker around this whole world of workforce. And we're going to talk with Patrick about how we use the SACA credentials to create opportunities in our relationships with our workforce partners. So Patrick, tell us about how Macomb Community College is using the SACA micro-credentials in your boot camps on the workforce side.
Sure, Matt. And for those who aren't very familiar with Macomb Community College, we're in this, as Matt said, we're in Southeast Michigan, which is a hub to automotive, aerospace, and defense industries with, the likes of the domestic three, General Motors, Stellantis, and Ford Motor Company, all three having their footprint here, as well as a significant defense industry with Selfridge Air Force Base and TACOM and ground vehicle systems for the U.S. Army here. Just down the street from where I'm located. And as such, what we found is that when we provide our short-term accelerated programs, similar to what you see here up on the screen, we have 4 of them within our automated systems suite, if you will, which is variations of the mechatronics programs. Industry was struggling with this concept of, Industry 4.0, thought process to hiring somebody, right? A graduate. How do we ensure that they have the competencies that we're looking for? Because not always does the language of degrees and even certificates really identify what those competencies were. And so what we did is we spanned the spectrum, if you will, and we thought that SACA really provided that not only micro credentials, but it translated to what industry was looking for. So we went through all of these courses. Now, all of these courses, the 4 you see here, kind of from the top, you have our robot programmer and a robot technician, industrial maintenance technician, and then a controls technician. All 4 of them have some core classes. So we went to SACA and gratefully so, they were able to help us crosswalk what we currently have to the SACA certifications. And then from there, we were able to identify what other things that we need to do and really massage for our new courses that we're going to add to ensure that, the SACA certifications were available to students as they come through. Now, from an industry perspective, as I mentioned, that really assists them with identifying what those competencies were, but also from a long-term upward mobility standpoint, it assists our students with gaining access to a degree. And the reason I say that is because all those short-term credentials are based out of our workforce and continuing education department, which, you know, some people would identify that as non-credit, even though we really don't like that word around here because it doesn't mean anything to anybody but education. Right. But that's a, you know, a non-credit based programs. And what we did was it was easier for us to relate to a degree program with faculty if we had some recognizable third-party credentials. So with SACA, this enables us to, you know, work with the academic credit side and say, okay, these are the competencies that these courses are going to translate to, and this is the certification that they're going to gain from SACA. And on the academic credit side, we're actually working with them to incorporate those same competencies as well as same certifications so that they can translate and automatically get credit for them. Currently, all 4 of those programs, because of this effort, now starting in the fall, we'll actually gain 8 credits. And those programs range in contact hours from 200 contact hours to 544 for the entire program in our end. And then they'll translate, all of them will translate into 8 credits on the degree side.
So, you know, it's interesting how many times this word translate came up in your last answer there, Patrick, and it really is all about translating, whether it's credit to non-credit. And yes, only those of us that are on the education side of the world know necessarily what non-credit is, but we all know on this webinar what that's about and how we create those great opportunities for workforce and aligning those back in to all your great programs there at Macomb Community College. So some really insightful and interesting comments here from my friend Patrick Rouse about how we use these SACA credentials and the micro credentials to go back and forth between the world of work and the world of education. And in reality, that line should be as seamless as possible. So Patrick, thank you so much for those great comments and those insights. And we're going to move on now to just another great partner of technical education, another leader that I've gotten to know pretty well over the course of the last year or two, Jim Cousineau, the Dean of Career and Technical Education at North Central Michigan College. And Jim now is going to talk about how we can use these to crosswalk to the university as well. So this should all be about creating as many different pathways as we can for our students and learners. So Jim Cousineau, welcome so much to the webinar. Thanks for being with us, and it's good to see you.
Yep, good to see you. I'm excited to be on here today.
And we're excited to have you. And we're gonna start with this first slide that you've got here. And I just want you to begin by telling our audience today, you know, how you went about building a degree program that aligned to SACA and how you're expanding the reach of this program and SACA by building pathways and partnerships with your universities in Michigan and beyond.
Yeah, we started this journey about a little over a year ago now. And I was asked to bring engineering technology into the college, engineering programs into the college. I was fortunate to have a really smart team kind of jump on board who had moved up here, and we started to look at three channels. One was workforce development, which is, I hate to use non-credit like Patrick said, but that is the term. But we're trying to change it to workforce development. Occupational terminal degrees, which is at a community college for those, a certificate or a 2-year degree that students can use and become employable right away on more of an AAS. We also did not want to ignore the students who may want to go further, who we can build a core and have a transfer degree that actually build an engineering tech and AS degree that can actually transfer forward. So we looked at, and as we sat down, we said, how do we do this? And after asking that for several times, we started to look at standards. We looked at SACA, which was relatively new to us, and a lot of industry up here wasn't aware of it. We're informing them, and they're all liking it right now. But we are, our whole team is fundamentally engineering based. We have engineering backgrounds. Our college president is an engineer, so he was looking for outcome based programs. And what we found was SACA's, even though it was new, the outcomes were solid, the competencies were solid, and they were translated. I'm going to steal that word again.
There you
go. Into actual competencies for engineering tech programs. So we started to build, and this is a early slide. Jerry, who was one of our, put these slides together, but it just kind of shows, if you look at We have in the red parentheses is the SACA certification. And then you look at LSSU, that is our university partner. We had LSSU here at our college, and we started to marry our programs that they were building because we wanted to make sure that we had a transfer path for our students who wanted to go there. So if you want to, so we built these courses. We built it based on one, that everything was, if a workforce development program at an industry was having students take classes, that these were all stackable. Once again, there is sure a theme here that everybody's applying along. So we started to build courses. You can go to the next slide. I'm not going to read all the small print. This is not how you do a PowerPoint slide, but this just shows that we did take concentration on how Lake Superior State built their course, how we built our course. We're going to have uniqueness. We want to make sure that they aligned, that the description aligned, that the outcomes aligned. And now if you go to the next one, we then looked at the SACA, which I highlighted here some of those stackable credentials that will lead to a credit. So we had a new vice president come on to college here early in the year, and all the stars are aligning because he is all about prior learning. He comes from Inver Hills College in Minnesota, and it's all about having pathways that students are always can learn, but they can take them forward. So these are just two highlighted classes that when students complete these certifications, and we go for the gold standard where everything is lab tested. Once we have that, now we can actually apply that with hours and time and competencies into college credit. So
I think go ahead, Jim.
Nope, go ahead, Matt.
Well, I was going to say, just summarizing some of the things that I'm hearing from you, which is really fascinating. Number one, really, really solid support on the part of your industrial employers, and even those that maybe weren't completely familiar with SACA when you got started talking to them about it, really grabbed onto just the value of all these industry recognized credentials. I love the way that you found a commonality between the programs at LSSU and your institution so that you can easily crosswalk back and forth. And I think just a great example here of the use of these micro-credentials and how you can take a micro-credential around, for example, electric motor controlled systems or basic AC/DC and crosswalk that to just about any program and any set of competencies. So I didn't mean to interrupt you. If there's one other point you wanted to make in the time we have left, I'd welcome it.
You said it much better than I can, Matt.
I highly doubt that. Coming from somebody who's as involved with this as you are, and boots on the ground, you referenced your incredibly intelligent and smart team, and I've gotten to know a number of your teammates and a number of members of your team, and I couldn't say it better myself. Is the fact that you've got incredibly smart people working alongside you as you implement SACA and do other incredible and great things at North Central Michigan College. So, Jim, thank you for being with us. And we're now going to turn to our fourth and final education guest before we turn to the world, I guess, a little bit of workforce and public policy. And that guest comes in the form of my friend, Gino, who's the Executive Director of Career and Technical Education at Saginaw ISD. So Jenny, it is awesome to have you with us on the webinar today. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you for inviting me. So just a little bit of background to set the stage. The Saginaw Intermediate School District encompasses all of Saginaw County in the East Central region of Michigan. So our ISD has approximately 27,000 students in its service area, kindergarten through grade 12. So CTE, which is essentially workforce development, begins in high school and aligns with those high demand industries, leading to industry credentials, including college credit. So I say that as kind of a groundwork to set the stage for what we're going to talk about in terms of the Saginaw story. So yeah. I've been here in our community for about 5 years now. So if you want to shift to the first slide, and manufacturing has been a major focus to help address the industry needs in our area and in our state. So in order to develop the programming that we needed 4 years ago, our community worked together to pass a historic countywide millage, which provides dollars for 10 years for our countywide CTE programs, including and especially manufacturing. Simultaneously, we also work together as an industry consortium with over 74 partners across the state on a robust talent development grant known as the Marshall Plan, which resulted in over $6.2 million. Over $5 million of those dollars landed in Saginaw County. So these funding sources, combined with our state and federal CTE funding, were game changers in our community, affording us to collaboratively develop a robust manufacturing talent pipeline in our county. Our CTE program at our countywide center is backed by an impressive program advisory board comprised predominantly of employers and industry experts within the field of manufacturing, which also includes our post-secondary partners. And additionally, our Great Lakes Bay Manufacturers Association is a very close partner in this work and in the development and expansion of our engineering and advanced manufacturing program. So with Industry 4.0 as identified as critical to our manufacturers, it was imperative that we aligned high school programming to this need. So 4 years ago, we also overhauled our countywide program, which serves all of our local districts, and we began to build an Industry 4.0 training lab to help prepare our students for this seemingly seismic shift. Every piece of equipment purchased, including curriculum materials, were recommended and or vetted by our advisory board and or our manufacturers association to ensure the workforce needs in this changing industry were addressed. We have a Michigan Manufacturing Technical Center in our area as well. So lots of visits to our local one and the one in Plymouth Canton kind of helped us decide what this training lab should look like. The Great Lakes Bay Manufacturers Association also conducted regional activities to determine where our area mid and small size manufacturers' needs around implementation of Industry 4.0 were, as well as to help inform a roadmap for implementation and support. So as part of this process, numerous roundtable discussions were convened to learn more. And a major outcome of that was the need for talent and a strong message from our employers that schools need to begin exposing students to Industry 4.0 and related STEM careers as early as middle school. So you can see that's already happening in certain pockets of Michigan. So without a strong supply chain of talent, Michigan's going to struggle to remain in its place as a manufacturing leader. So this is so important. It's important to our kids, to our employers, to our state, and really to our nation that we're really moving forward in this way. So I had been exposed to the Smart Automation Certification Alliance previously. And when I was looking at these SACA certifications, it just became clear that this is a great mechanism to not only prepare our students for this changing workforce, but to also help employers upskill current employees. So our plan for our high school CTE program is to implement several of the associate level certifications starting with the 22-23 school year, which would include the associate level basic and advanced operations, as well as the IoT, networking, and data analytics levels. So the skills that are required to attain these credentials align very strongly, as had been previously stated, with these critical employer talent needs in this space. So we're very committed to this work and have been for some time. The other cool thing that's happening right now is through the Michigan Office of Career and Technical Education, consortiums have been convened through their Career Pathways grant process to align industry credentials with competencies for our state-approved CTE programs. So one of the pathways being addressed right now is mechatronics, and the SACA certifications are one of several credentials that are being discussed. So this work is in process, but the fact that this is at the table for discussion is critically important. As one of my colleagues mentioned, SACA is relatively new, and so we're simultaneously educating at the same time. So the other part of this is they're reviewing existing curriculum to ensure that it's accurately reflecting the industry. So there's opportunity to make sure that Industry 4.0 competencies can also be included into these curriculums, which, because they're state approved programs, means that every program across the state would be teaching and is teaching the same foundational pieces. So this process requires input from employers, as well as secondary and post-secondary instructors that are experts in this pathway. The credential discussion is particularly important as industry technology rapidly shifts, and we need to continue to build and expand robust programs of study from our secondary CTE programs that seamlessly align to our post-secondary programs, working together to develop the solid talent pipeline that our manufacturers need. And like I said, in this way, everybody benefits. And there's lots of different ways to get at that in career and technical education without getting into the weeds with it. But I also included a few, if you want to shift to the next slide.
And we got about 30 seconds left, Jenny, if that's all right. Yep. For you. Yep.
Some quick photos. This is just some photos of our consortium and State Senator Ken Horn, who's been a big supporter of our implementation. You can go to the next two. But I wanted to give you kind of a flavor of different aspects of our lab and what some of these training programs and equipment pieces look like. And I think there might be one more in there.
Absolutely. And What a great answer, Jenny. And I just want to reflect. I'm going to leave this slide up here for just a minute and reflect on some of the things that I've heard, not just from you, but from all of our education panelists before we move on to Ryan Hunt here in just a moment. Wow, what a discussion that we've had with some really cutting edge leading educators around all the different ways that SACA can be used to build those relationships across different platforms. And what I mean by that is we have heard about how we can create articulation and commonality, not just from high school to community college, which is really, really important. We heard about how we can do this from Patrick Rouse into the workforce. And so we can take these credentials and these certifications and build them into our workforce planning and our workforce education programs. Jim Cousineau talked all about how we build between a community college and a university using the SACA credentials. Deb Dawson, an unbelievable story about a young man who came into one of her programs already possessing one of the SACA credentials and used that to parlay and head start his pursuit of a degree pathway at the community college level. And finally, Jenny, all the examples that you have, whether it's working with SME Prime, whether it is working with your employers, educating them about SACA, learning about SACA, building this into all the different programs at Saginaw ISD. I hope if our audience didn't hear anything else in that discussion, it is that this is truly the Rosetta Stone that enables us across all of these different platforms, including, by the way, the mechatronics zip codes that Jenny also mentioned, allows us to talk the same language from industry to workforce to high school to university to community college to public policy and beyond. And speaking of this world of public policy, our final guest today is the CEO of Michigan Works, a relatively new position for our guest, Ryan Hunt, who I've gotten to know quite well the last several years. He's just a great leader, really thoughtful person when it comes to this world of Industry 4.0. I've actually got 3 questions for Ryan. So Ryan, thanks so much for taking some time for us this afternoon.
Thank you, Matt. Great to be here. It's awesome to be on a panel of such distinguished individuals, and hopefully I can round out the conversation quite well today.
And we have no doubt that you will. I want to start for, we've got attendees today from all over the state of Michigan. We also have attendees from outside the state of Michigan, really, really interested in looking at how Michigan is leading on Industry 4.0. So for those in our audience who might not be quite as familiar with Michigan Works, tell us a little bit about your organization.
Sure. So I'll talk about the Michigan Works system first, and then I'll narrow it down more specific to the association. The Michigan Works system, that's the 16 Michigan Works agencies statewide. So if you look at the map up there on the screen, it kind of looks like the state of Michigan now has chicken pox, but those little pinpoints are actually where our Michigan Works agencies, their headquarters are located, their administrative offices. But each of those Michigan Works agencies, although there are 16 of them uniquely and strategically positioned in the state of Michigan, they do have 66 service centers and 33 one-stop centers throughout the state of Michigan that on average serve about 675,000 job seekers per year. And they also serve a little over 32,000 businesses each year as well. So they work well with both job seekers and individuals looking to upskill themselves, looking for new career pathways. They also work very closely with the business community. That way they can understand what are some of those needs from the business side of the equation. What's resources, what assistance can they provide to businesses to help match in-demand talent with in-demand occupations right there in their own backyards. So for the Michigan Works Association, we are the statewide association that represents those 16 Michigan Works agencies around the state of Michigan. And we focus in 3 individual buckets that are kind of our special areas of focus. The first focus is around legislative advocacy and public policy. We work very closely with our elected officials at the federal, state, and local levels to ensure that when we're talking about economic resiliency and economic recovery, especially coming out of the pandemic now, we're really focused on ensuring that workforce development is a key part of that equation for long-term economic resiliency. People are going to need jobs. Businesses right now, not just in Michigan, but all across the country, are struggling to find and retain people for those positions. And so workforce development becomes a critical component to long-term economic recovery and resiliency. The second bucket that we focus on as well, because we have so many dedicated professional staff across the entire Michigan Works system in the state of Michigan, oftentimes they need to be able to access and secure professional development opportunities. And so our team at the association helps facilitate a number of different workshops and trainings and professional development opportunities for the Michigan Works staff. whether that's frontline staff, business services staff, even executive leadership at each of those 16 Michigan Works agencies. We help facilitate those opportunities on an annual basis. And then the third bucket that we focus on really is around key events. And those events are meant to increase and raise the visibility of the Michigan Works system and the workforce development system as a whole in Michigan. Our next big event coming up is September 11th through the 13th. We'll be at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort in Mount Pleasant, Michigan for our annual conference. And that'll be the first annual conference that we've held in over 2 years that will be back in person. So we're very much looking forward to it.
Yeah, wouldn't it be great to have everybody back in the same room again as the world opens up? That's been fantastic. So legislative advocacy, professional development, key events, all part of the portfolio of services and endeavors that Michigan Works is taking on under your leadership, Ryan. So thanks for that summary. You know, speaking of major endeavors and major initiatives, your governor, Gretchen Whitmer, introduced earlier, I guess it was last year, maybe a year or so ago, this whole idea of the 60 by 30 initiative. It's a really, really bold initiative. And I think in many ways sets an example of the importance of third-party credentials like SACA for the rest of the country. So tell us a little bit about what 60 by 30 is.
Sure. I could not agree more with you, Matt. I think that 60 by 30 initiative, that goal certainly helps increase just the visibility, but also the importance of credentials like SACA and other post-secondary credentials and certifications for individuals to be able to pursue. So that 60 by 30 initiative for individuals who may not be as familiar with that overall goal, here in Michigan, our goal by 2030 is that 60% of individuals or adults in Michigan, working age adults, will have some type of post-secondary credential or certification in Michigan. So that's where your 60% by 2030 comes in. Now, some regions of the state have even taken that and increased that objective or that goal. So in Oakland County, Michigan, for example, in Southeast Michigan, just outside of Detroit, they have an initiative called Oakland 80, and their goal by 2030 is that 80% of their working age adults will have some type of post-secondary credential or certification. We've been working extremely closely with the state's Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity. They actually house the 60 by 30 office within a state department here in Michigan. And we're very supportive of the efforts that are involved with 60 by 30. We also understand that by 2030, 75% or more of the jobs in Michigan will require some type of post-secondary credential or certification. Now, we know that not everybody is going to receive a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, but just some type of post-secondary certification or credential can really set individuals on the path toward long-term economic success. They're able to better support their families, their communities, and also continue to increase their knowledge and professional expertise in a range of industries. If you take a look at the state of Michigan's Hot 50 jobs, and that Hot 50 jobs is posted periodically throughout the year by the state's Department of Technology, Management, and Budget. The bulk of those positions that are available and will continue to be in significant demand through 2028 are requiring individuals to have at least a high school diploma. Many of them also require some type of post-secondary credential as well. Again, reiterating the importance of that 60 by 30 initiative that we are very much aligned with and continue to support throughout the entire Michigan Works system.
So a great summary of the importance of this. It's just amazing initiative taking place in the state of Michigan called 60 by 30. Of course, the question of the day, and speaking of 60 by 30, and about the 30 seconds we have before we have to kick it over to Melissa for questions from the audience, talk a little bit about how SACA will help achieve the 60 by 30 goal in the state of Michigan. Sure.
It's really a robust and comprehensive effort for us to get to that 60 by 30 goal, Matt. Throughout the presentation today, we've heard individuals talk about micro-credentials and competencies and skills-based learning. And all of those credentials are really just essential building blocks to help individuals obtain and maintain continued employment and success in a range of industries. And so we feel very fortunate to be part of this conversation and the continued support by you and your team and SACA to help us achieve that 60 by 30 goal. It's really just one part of the equation, but it could be a very big part of the equation at the end of the day.
We expect that it will be, and we appreciate your interest and support and willingness to spend some time with us today, Ryan. So thank you so much for being with us. Ryan Hunt, the CEO of Michigan Works. And now, Melissa, I know we've got some really interesting questions coming across from the audience. What are you hearing from the group with us today?
Thank you, Matt. And to our audience members, if you have any lingering questions, feel free to pop those into the Q&A. We won't get time for all of them, but we will address a few of the big ones. And Matt, this is a big one that we always hear from people is, how can a school or teacher get access to review a certification, like a sample exam and the competencies required in that? And then as well, can you talk about what the exam is actually entails? What does it take for a student, and what is their experience going through a SBAA certification exam?
Yeah, Melissa, thank you. And a great question. In answer to the first part of the question, SBAA has over 150 ambassadors across the United States. I am one, Melissa's one, and there are others. Feel free to reach out to ATS-LAB Midwest, and we can, depending on what region you're in, we can point you in the right direction. Those are the individuals that will sit down with you, look at your course outcomes, look at your students, and look at your goals, and then suggest SBAA certifications that it can align. And from there, then we can share all of the details. There are summaries, by the way, on SBAA website, SBAA.org. So you can visit that website as well to see summaries of every single credential and micro-credential. As for the student experience, it's a combination of two things. There are silver credentials, which were mentioned earlier in our discussion. I think by Debbie, a silver credential is a certification that is the theory or the online aspect. It's an online exam, proctored exam that a student can take. It takes about 45 to 90 minutes online per certification. And then SBAA has gold credentials, and those are hands-on skills. And that is where we have to work with an authorized SBAA partner and an authorized proctor that can then assess the student's ability to perform certain hands-on skills that are important in advanced manufacturing. So those are the two aspects of it. And it's really that simple. I hold two of the SBAA certifications that I was able to earn online.
Thanks, Matt. Another big one, and I'm going to ask this question, then broaden the question. Tell us about how the automotives, specifically companies like Ford, GM, Tesla, as well as tier 1 and tier 2 suppliers, and maybe broaden it to just manufacturers and employers in general. How are we seeing them recognize SBAA certifications that are coming?
Well, it starts with my premise that if we tell a student they can earn a credential and it's a pathway to a lifelong career, in a rewarding career, and they earn that credential and there's no job on the other side of it, we have done that student a huge disservice. So we have been working with, and you saw the list of employers, just some of them that have been supporting SBAA, and we've heard repeatedly through the discussion today from our guests about how many employers are interested in supporting the work of the Smart Automation Certification Alliance. We are working really, really diligently with those employers that have helped define the competencies and others to make sure they're valuing the certifications as students come out of those programs. And we are seeing numerous employees now, and Joe Zaccaria being one of them, talking about how much they value students that have those certifications as they're coming into the world of work. They're also using them for their incumbent workforce. And so whether it is tier 1 automotive supplier, and I worked in automotive for years, I know all about tier 1, I know about the domestic 3, as was mentioned earlier today. We have a number of those organizations that are actively not just supporting the work of their educators and implementing the credentials in their education institutions, but also enabling their incumbent workers to pursue the credentials as well. So that's how we create interest, that's how we create support, and that's how we create demand for the credential.
Awesome. One more question, because I know we're coming up on our time, and I'll just say to those of you who had very, very specific questions for specific panelists, we can connect you later. And yes, we will be sending the recording out to everyone via email later this week. But Matt, one more question. I think it's a fabulous one because of the majority of our attendees are educators. The question is, how do we get this message out to businesses, especially small businesses? What's your take on that?
Yep, great question. And I'll take that question, Melissa, and then we'll roll right into the conclusion here, as I think you teed up for me. The answer to that, and number one best way to get them interested, is to have them serve on a SBAA technical work group or validation group that actually goes through the competencies and assesses whether or not they apply to their business, helps give us feedback on the importance and the accuracy of the certifications as they're being developed. That is the number one way. And we are constantly running technical work groups. So if you can get your industrial employers involved in that, that is an awesome way to do it. I can also tell you that at least once a week, I talk to a technical college, community college, university, high school tech ed advisory board about the value of SBAA. And if I or any of the other 150 SBAA ambassadors across the United States can come and visit with your industrial employers, that invitation and that offer is wide open. And we are happy to come and share as much as we can about the value of SOC. As you can tell, I'm a huge evangelist. I'm a huge believer in this whole world of the Smart Automation Certification Alliance. And as we are up against the end of our webinar here today, I just want to thank, first of all, our unbelievable guests from public policy, from industry, from education, just a great group of people and great insights. So to those of us that were able to join us as guests, thank you so much for being here. The recording of today's webinar will be available. So if you registered, and by virtue of the fact that you're here, you will get an email with that video. And as Melissa mentioned earlier, please feel encouraged to share that. Finally, if you have any questions on any of the things that we've talked about today, look us up at ATS-LAB in West. Our team is standing ready to support you in every possible way as we work together to secure the American dream for the next generation of STEM and workforce talent. Thanks so much for being with us.